Dexter T. Resurrection wrapped up its first season with an ending that might not have been packed with shocking twists, but it was still a very Dexter kind of conclusion. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel or throw in a completely out of nowhere twist, the show leaned on what fans know and love about the character Dexter Morgan, once again slipping away from justice and walking free while still fully embracing who he is. For anyone who has been following Dexter's journey since the original series, this ending felt both predictable and strangely satisfying, like putting on a familiar old jacket that just fits right. Some people might say the finale wasn't exciting enough. It wasn't a big blockbuster episode full of explosions, massive reveals, or shocking betrayals. In fact, most of it takes place in only a couple of rooms, but at the same time, that's exactly why it worked. The episode stayed focused on what really matters: Z. Dexter accepting himself, Harrison stepping into a bigger role, and the audience being reminded that no matter how much the world changes around him, Dexter is never going to change who he is at his core. The final episode, titled "And Justice for All," made it clear right from the start what the theme was going to be. This wasn't about shocking us anymore. This was about tying things up in a way that felt authentic to Dexter's story, while still leaving the door open for more chaos in the future. Let's dive into everything that happened in the finale and break down what it all means. The episode begins with Dexter stuck in Prater's vault, trapped with Batista's corpse. Dexter being locked up feels symbolic, as though he's literally facing the consequences of his lifestyle. But of course, this is Dexter, so he quickly turns the tables. Prater is buzzing with excitement about his kill, but his arrogance blinds him to how sloppy the situation is. He tells his assistant Charlie to just leave Dexter locked in the vault until he dies of dehydration, as if it's that simple. But Dexter survived too much for such a basic plan to actually work. What makes this sequence more fun is how Dexter uses his resourcefulness to get back in touch with Harrison. He finds Batista's phone and calls his son, who, in classic teenage fashion, is busy with his girlfriend instead of paying attention. Once Harrison realizes how serious things are, though, he jumps into action, calling Lance and sneaking his way into the gala through a catering gig. The fact that he's literally serving food to New York's richest and most powerful people while trying to rescue his dad is such a perfectly Dexter-style irony. It highlights the double lives everyone is leading in this story. When Harrison finally makes it up to the penthouse, he runs into a major obstacle, Charlie. This character has been fascinating the whole season, and the finale digs even deeper into her messy past. Dexter figures out through the compromat in Prater's vault that Charlie was behind Mia's staged suicide. He uses this information to blackmail her, threatening to expose her to the cops. But Charlie refuses to play by Dexter's rules. She agrees to let Harrison leave, but keeps Dexter trapped, warning that if he ever escapes, she'll hunt down Harrison and torture him. It's a tense moment because for once, Dexter isn't fully in control. But once Charlie leaves, father and son get right back to trying to crack the vault. This whole scene, with Batista's phone battery dying, only one chance to get the code right, and Dexter second-guessing himself, really ramps up the tension. The code ends up being tied to the prisoner who killed Prater's parents, which is another reminder of how much trauma and family tragedy drives the psychology of this entire show. Harrison manages to escape, but things get even more complicated when Prater himself steps in. Just when Dexter is almost out, Prater corners Harrison, forcing Dexter to come back and face him. This leads to the ultimate showdown. Thanks to the protective gear Dexter had given Harrison earlier, the kid survives long enough for Dexter to swoop in. Together, they manage to overpower Prater, and Dexter finally gets his moment to do what he does best: kill. The sequence where Dexter kills Prater is one of the wildest moments of the finale. It isn't clinical or detached like some of Dexter's earlier kills. It's raw, messy, and filled with emotion. This isn't just about stopping a killer anymore. This is Dexter fully leaning into the part of himself he's tried to suppress and finally being okay with it. Peter Dinklage absolutely nails Prater's final moments, and Michael C. Hall shows us a version of Dexter who is not conflicted, but fully embracing the darkness. The fact that Dexter doesn't even bother with one of his signature blood slides here is telling. He doesn't need trophies anymore. He isn't trying to remember. He is just doing what feels natural. After killing Prater, Dexter cleans up, dismembers the body, and then makes his escape in typical genius fashion. He deliberately enters the wrong code into the vault, triggering the alarm and summoning the cops. Using Prater's severed thumb, he manages to get away unnoticed. Meanwhile, Claudette and the rest of the police finally stumble onto the mountain of evidence Prater had been hiding along with Batista's body. They get their answers, but Dexter slips through their fingers once again. One of the most bizarre but delightful touches in the finale is Claudette doing a quick staying alive dance. It's random. It doesn't push the plot forward at all, but it adds a little bit of levity to the dark storyline, which honestly makes the whole episode more enjoyable. It's a reminder that Dexter has always balanced gruesome kills with strange humor. The finale ends with Dexter sailing off into the night on Prater's yacht. Bags full of Prater's remains and folders filled with details on future potential targets. He has Harrison Blessing and a family that grounds him, but he also has his dark passenger, fully intact. The message is clear. Dexter isn't trying to change anymore. He's not trying to suppress his true self. He's finally comfortable being who he is, both as a father and as a killer. When you look at this finale as a whole, it might seem underwhelming at first glance. It doesn't have a shocking cliffhanger like "Who Shot JR?" or a completely game-changing twist. But that's not what it needed to do. The whole point of Dexter T Resurrection has been about the character rediscovering who he really is. The finale delivered exactly that, Dexter getting away with murder again, only now with more confidence and less self-doubt. If anything, the simplicity of the finale is what makes it work. Dexter isn't a character who can be neatly wrapped up with justice or redemption. He's a killer who survives because he's smarter than everyone else and because deep down the audience kind of wants him to survive. Watching him escape, watching him set sail with new plans for the future feels like the right way to close this chapter while keeping the door wide open for the next one. This also sets up plenty of possibilities for a second season. Dexter has folders of new targets, a son who is now fully aware of who he is, and unresolved threats like Charlie that could come back to haunt him. Instead of ending with finality, the show leaves us with a sense of continuation. Dexter's story isn't over. It's just beginning again on his terms. So while some fans might wish the finale had been bigger, louder, or more shocking, the truth is that this was the perfect ending for Dexter T Resurrection. It reminded us who Dexter is, gave him the win he's been chasing, and set him up for a dark but strangely satisfying future.